I know you asked me about the acceleration of 5G, but all of this happened during a lot of the most challenging times in the history of our company.
Mm.
But it speaks to the quality of our people, the resilience of, our culture, and how it's a company that, when we put our heads to something, our people, rise to the challenge.
Oh, yes, it's the Qualcomm Podcast. I'm PJ, and thanks for listening. Qualcomm makes some of the best technology on the planet. I'm going to bring you interviews with the experts and the inventors here so you can understand how the technology works and find out what's coming next. Today, we're joined by Qualcomm leadership, Cristiano Amon, president of Qualcomm Incorporated. We're going to be talking about his background, how he came to Qualcomm, Snapdragon development, and our new decade, 5G. I'm also joined by my friend Jessica Jensen, one of our marketing directors here at Qualcomm. Just to start off, one of my favorite things to do here at Qualcomm is go to your all hands meeting because it is like a massive Best Buy commercial. It's awesome because we're in Qualcomm technologies, like in so many products, and I feel like you do a great job of bringing all of us up to speed on all of the cool things that we're in these days.
Thank you very much. I appreciated that. Actually, feedback's important for me. I do have fun doing the all hands. I actually like doing it.
It looks like you have fun doing it.
I
You brought
do,
the electric scooter the last time.
Yes, we had. I had more ambitious plan for it, but when that just showing a little bit versus doing wild rides, but it was good.
But it's cool. I didn't know our modem technology is inside of these scooters.
It is so many places that most people don't do is a lot of people don't know that when you think about this scooters you see everywhere, and people activate them with their cell phone, and not only in the United States but also China and other places. We're the number one supplier of the IoT technology of those scooters. A lot of people don't know that across all the different brands of scooters. So it's a cool thing.
That's amazing. That's great. So I kind of want to dig into your past for a moment.
Yes.
But before we do, what is your role at Qualcomm right now? So our audience is familiar.
As president, the way we work at Qualcomm, I think I have all the product business of Qualcomm. So think of Qualcomm as a company that has a licensing business that's QTL, and that's QCT that has all of our product, all of semiconductors, and have all of our international presence or go-to-market. So I'm responsible for all of semiconductor business and all the regional operations of the company.
Fantastic. So where'd you grow up?
Grew up in Brazil.
Wow.
Have you been there?
I have not been there yet.
You should. It's beautiful.
But I love picanha meat.
I found a place here in San Diego that I can get that cut, so I'm very happy.
Okay, you have to tell me after the recording because I've got some Brazilian friends out here. I'm always on the hunt for picanha.
Grew up in Brazil, went to school in Brazil, got my engineering degree in Brazil. Actually left Brazil for the first time to go to Tokyo. I started my career working for a Japanese company, NEC, and this is the time when they were in the cellular infrastructure business. And after doing 1G, as they started having cellular in Brazil, they transferred me to the headquarters. So I left Brazil first to go to Tokyo. A great experience for me. I lived for kind of about 1 year in Tokyo, working for a Japanese corporation.
Wow.
And then from that, we decided at NEC we wanted to do something called IS-95 CDMA. And so I came to Qualcomm as an NEC employee. That was back in 1994. Fell in love with the company, fell in love with the city of San Diego. And to my surprise, a few months later, Qualcomm approached me and wanted to hire me, and that started my journey with Qualcomm.
That's fantastic.
That was back in 1995.
That's great. So NEC was 1G. And when you started at Qualcomm, that was the beginnings of 2G.
Digital cellular and was our version of 2G, which was IS-95 CDMA.
At that time, what kind of products was this modem going into?
So actually, when I joined Qualcomm, I joined the infrastructure business. If you remember in the history of the company, Qualcomm, big first project was Omni. When I joined, it was before the very first CDMA launch in the world. Actually, it was Hutchison in Hong Kong in 1995. It was just a few months after I joined. And at that time, not a lot of people believed in the CDMA technology. There was no ecosystem. So Qualcomm needed to build all the pieces. So we had the chip, we had the phone business, and then we have infrastructure. I started working on the infrastructure that later became
infrastructure. This is the cellular towers.
the base stations and the base station controllers
Gotcha. The things all of our devices connect to.
connect to. And then that ended up going to Ericsson. The phone business went to Kyocera, and the chip business stayed, and that's what the basis of today's QCT.
And by the way, how come you became an engineer?
It's interesting. So when I was at high school, my dad said to me, "Hey, son, you can do anything you want as long as it's engineering, law school, or medical school." So I said, "Okay, I don't want to be a doctor. I don't want to read a lot of books for law school, so I go engineering." And it was probably that simple.
Awesome. I love it.
But having said that, there's other factors. My father's electrical engineer as well, so that has an influence. Even though his traditional engineering, he would work in the utility company, I like more communications, electronics. I always like radio communications. So it was kind of easier to go that direction. And having, my dad as an engineer, I think, I ended up getting more familiar with engineering growing up.
Go on, Jess.
So when we think about engineers and we talk about building something like the Snapdragon processor, help us understand how that might work. How many engineers would work on something like a platform?
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot. Look, it's not easy to do something like the Snapdragon chip, like the Snapdragon 800. And I know we brag about it, but it is the best mobile processor in the industry. And it is, unlike some of our competitors that may be good in one area like video, or they may be good in another area like camera, we are the best in the industry in any category. And you think about this huge system that you have every single technology that is going to be required for what the phone is today. And it's easy to take for granted, but the entire consumer electronic industry is in your phone.
Yeah.
We have a lot of engineers that's divided in a number of different subsystems, and it goes from position location to Bluetooth to Wi-Fi to cellular to graphics to digital signal processors to the CPU and a number of other peripheral systems that go integrate into the Snapdragon chip. So it's a big matrix of individual groups are working on technologies and other groups that put the chip together, stitching them all, make it all work, and then you have the software on top. It is a multi-billion-dollar investment for every single Snapdragon 800, but no wonder I think we were able to stay in the leadership position because we actually invest in those technologies to be number one.
It seems to me, from knowing Qualcomm's history, it's started as a modem, and then little by little you watched what it was going into, just evolved, and thought we probably need a more powerful CPU, and maybe we should put a GPU in now, and maybe a camera ISP. And is that basically how it came together?
I love this question, and I'll tell the reason I love this question, because it actually, the answer to the question explains why we're so different than all of the other companies in the space. We have a semiconductor business, but we're not a semiconductor company. We're a system company. And exactly what has happened in the history of Qualcomm, which is we have the engineering capability to solve problems. So as people started to say, look, we started with just the modem and just the digital part. But then we started to see what was happening with radio frequencies in the band and how to solve problems, make it easier for those the technology to work. And then we got into the transceiver business. Then we needed to manage battery life. We got into the power management business. And then people started to do more things with their phone. They wanted to connect to the internet, and then they want to take pictures. They want to, listen to music. So we got into the multimedia, starting with camera, and then as you started to render the UI, the old UIs, you have icons that you store them in a memory, and then you basically go to the memory read and just put it on display. But then as the UI user interface became more sophisticated, you wanted to render in real time. We need to get into the graphics business. And then I think the best of that example is when we got to 4G. 4G, we provide broadband to the phone, but then you need a computer. What's on the other side of the broadband link? So we needed to build a smartphone. And it was interesting because this was about the time, I had a number of different positions in Qualcomm, but that's the time I came to QCT. And we have this first smartphone chipset was the 7000 series, and a lot of people said, "You guys should kill this chip. There's no demand for it. Who wants to have an integrated application processor together with the modem?" And until we got the call from Google to say, "Hey, we can do this Android thing with this chip because it's an integrated SoC." And
I love that they called it this Android thing.
yes, and then you can see how it transformed the industry. But we knew you need a computer to use the broadband, so you needed to have the ability to have an operational system and have the processing capability to do that. That's the beginning of the Snapdragon. And it's funny, when we created the first Snapdragon 800, people thought the application for this must be a computer. So we had like netbooks. Nobody wants this in a phone. And we know where we are right now.
To your point, this thing keeps growing, and it ends up in all different places, the Snapdragon platform. And it was in phones and smartphones, and now, different parts of our company use it for auto, for
Yes.
IoT. But now it's powerful enough for laptops. And I believe you were the one who literally went on stage at a Microsoft event and announced that Snapdragon is coming to Windows 10 powered
Yes.
laptops. What was, I'm just curious, what was that like? And how long was that kind of in development for before that was actually announced?
I think when I announced that with Terry Myerson, that was the Microsoft at the time. There was the famous, hug that we had on stage. That was
The famous hug.
The famous hug. When they announced that Qualcomm was coming to the Microsoft ecosystem on the PC side. At the time of the announcement, we were working on that for about a year before that.
Cool.
And now, if you think about how many years we are in development now, but the good thing about Qualcomm, and that's what also one reason I really like this place. When we put our head into something, we commit to do it. We're just going to do it. It's no different than the years it took for us to build a PC that now can compete with the mainstream, the PC. Same thing with the RF front end. That we went from nothing to be the leader in 5G, and it's about the commitment to technology innovation and commitment to solve the problems and invest in the different solutions that we can do something new in the marketplace. And the whole purpose on the PC was, can we bring innovation back to the PC?
Right.
Can you make a device that people want to operate like they operate their phone? Why do you worry about boot time? Why it's not instant on?
Yeah.
Why do you carry your charger? Why do you have to worry about where you're connected to Wi-Fi or hotel Wi-Fi? It's just you don't do that with your phone.
Yeah.
Right.
You take it out of the box and immediately you're using.
Right.
And then how can we allow the PC manufacturers to create form factors that people really want to have for mobility? So that got into this. And the fascinating thing about this, if you talk to Microsoft today, if you go hear what Microsoft is saying, they say the most important thing for a company is the enterprise cloud. Everything is in the cloud and you're connected 100% of the time. I said, oh, great. That's exactly what we're doing. Right?
I think now, to your point, we keep adding more and more and more to Snapdragon. It becomes more and more powerful, more and more confident. Seems like the latest member inside of this chip is 5G. This is the new decade. But we weren't even supposed to have 5G right now. It was because Qualcomm could move so fast, and we moved up the whole timeline by a year.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's
How did we do that?
for me, it's one of my favorite topics, but you're going to give me a few minutes to go tell this story. So,
Totally.
so if it go back to many of those things that we just discussed about Qualcomm. I think our mandate is how do we solve industry problems, and what we had a particular photograph when we set ourselves to accelerate 5G. This was back in, if I'm not mistaken, this was back in the beginning of 2017. When you look how consumers use their phone, you see no matter who it is, year over year, you do more and more on your phone. Productivity, entertainment, and people want more data, higher speed, unlimited data, and people wanted 5G. And also 5G could create new use cases, bring innovation back to mobile, create new players, change the landscape. So I think fair to say, didn't like the cards that we have, which is slow down in mobile, lack of innovation, concentration, and even the technology that we work so hard to develop, such as modem speeds, some of the leading companies say, I don't need this. I'm going to defeature your modem because it's too fast for what I want to do. And that didn't match how we feel consumers felt about mobile broadband. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to accelerate 5G. Why do we have to wait until the summer Olympics of 2020 if the market wanted right now? So that was the beginning of the journey. So then we got together with 4 other companies. So we picked the companies that probably would feel the same way, or be interested and had the also technical competence in their area. They're not the only ones, but the ones that will sympathize with the idea. So I got together with Ericsson, then SK Telecom in Korea, AT&T in the United States, and NTT Docomo in Japan. So the 5 of us got together. We say, look, let's just accelerate this. Let's go make a proposal in the standard meetings around MWC 2017, and articulate why we need it, why it can be done, and let's change the timeline and get release 15, completed. So when we got to MWC, we got about 40 plus companies join us. So we started getting momentum.
Nice.
So then we work toward the year of 17, and we complete the standard on that schedule. By the end of 17, we celebrate a milestone. We get the 3GPP release 15 out. Now we get a 5G standard. Cool. So then we got ourselves as fast as possible during the year of 18 to develop this technology, and we've been like nonstop. And the great part about this story, it's a story that talks a lot about Qualcomm. I know you asked me about the acceleration of 5G, but all of this happened during a lot of the most challenging times in the history of our company. But it speaks to the quality of our people, the resilience of, our culture, and how it's a company that, when we put our heads to something, our people, rise to the challenge. And with all of those things, we develop on top of everything else we had, they accelerated the 5G development. And we had a number of milestones during 2018 about we have the technology, we have the chip, and we have the trial. Whether it's a phone, an infrastructure, we're always there. And we had a number of milestones in the chip. And then when we started to say, we're going to launch this technology first quarter 2019, that's 1 year plus a quarter of acceleration from the original timeline. And then when we got to MWC, that's what happened. We saw phones get announced left and right. There's even the joke about me showing up on different stages, and people say, "Oh, look at Cristianos here. There's going to be a phone announcement, right?"
And joking here, we didn't take up too much of your time because we felt like the more time you take up, the less 5G comes to market.
Yes.
Right. We're slowing 5G down right now because we have you here.
And then what happened is we have the 5G moment.
Right.
When everyone that was part of this journey, we kind of celebrated that when the whole thing started, and it was great to see because it's also great to show how the Qualcomm business model works. It's about we develop technology we could share with the entire ecosystem. So we had everybody there, every infrastructure vendor, test equipment vendor, operators across the entire globe, handset OEMs, and I think that's what the 5G moment was all about. So
that's amazing.
So that was I think a great story and a great story for the industry of pulling in 5G. And I'm optimistic that we're going to see coverage in all the metropolitan areas by the end of the year.
I just saw they put in the towers in our lobby, the small cells.
Yes. I'm looking when the icon's going to change.
So our audience are all tech enthusiasts, tech influencers. They hear about 5G all the time. So we talk a lot about 5G at Qualcomm. Many other companies are as well. But one of the things that is so important to people is what's the use case, right? What's in it for me? We know faster. Everyone understands faster for sure. But I know one of the use cases that you've actually spoken about recently is around this notion of apps and perhaps the coming up of these super apps like we see with the WeChat. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
To. It's interesting. By the way, there's going to be some very interesting upcoming announcements that
Here we go.
that talk about this.
Anything you can tease with us today?
Well,
Stay tuned to the Qualcomm social channels and to Cristiano's
Good
social
plug.
feed.
Thank you,
to
PJ.
follow the news.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think I'll answer your question, and then when you see the announcement, you're going to say, "Oh, okay, this all makes sense."
Awesome.
So the principle when you think about what are the key pillars of what 5G brings to the phones, and then how we're going to translate that into services that users are going to see and love and use every day. 5G, first of all, provides you unlimited data. and provide data at a very, very high speed. So that's one attribute of 5G. The other attribute of 5G is latency or the response time. It's very short. And then the pillar number 3 is reliability. It's reliable. So if you have it, you really have it. It's not you may have it. So what that will do for you as a user is you're connected with the cloud 100% of the time. And it doesn't matter, or you may not be able to tell the difference where the stuff is in your phone or in the cloud. It doesn't matter. So you have unlimited storage. And where your data is always with you. Everything. You just put it on the cloud. On top of it, if you want to access the data, because it's reliable, you're going to have. So, and then combine all those things together and think about 5G almost like a connection between the processor in your phone and a processor in the cloud. So in addition to have access to data, you also have the ability to do on-demand computing. If you run out of performance, you can run things on the cloud. So what that means to you? You're going to see, first of all, the apps become unlimited. The super apps, the apps are not bounded by the OS or the processing capabilities on your phone. So, and now I'm going to, with that understanding and that context, I will start bringing individual services. The first thing, let's talk about multimedia and entertainment in general. The majority of us, we stream music. Because even with an okay 4G connection, for music is enough bandwidth. But now, for 4K video, including things that are time sensitive like sports and news, we have a guarantee of delivery with the high bandwidth. So we're going to consume video in the same way that we consume music. So and eventually that is going to change. Why do you need broadcast? Because if you have 5G, you have unlimited channels. You can stream everything you want, and it's going to be guaranteed. So it's going to start changing that. But then it changes one more step. The thing about cloud gaming. So today, if I have to play, I'm on the phone. I have to play Candy Crush because this is what I can play on my phone instead of playing a PC gaming. Play mainstream gaming. And mainstream gaming that plays on the cloud. Talk about the processing is on the cloud, and you get the data back to your phone. So every 5G phone is potentially a Nintendo Switch that can play full-blown PC games. And maybe like Netflix changed the DVD players and the Blu-ray discs, maybe 5G will change the console, but will change gaming. So we'll talk about video, talk about gaming, but then there's more. We'll change social. If you have response time, so how we think about social today, and you post something, you get a notification, you go check. And you start to see the emergence of like Facebook Live and things like that, but now you have the bandwidth and the latency to broadcast yourself. It's interesting, I talk about that with some of the media companies and, see the reaction. Like if you have an event, every one of us with a 5G phone, we are a 4K camera broadcaster in real time. We can
Totally.
and as the camera get better.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of people will have a lot more sharing of what they do in real time. You are going to know, and because it's reliable, you know who your friends are online. You can really reach them. We're going to change how we think about interaction, and then if you keep pulling down the stream, you can think about how it changes. What type of productivity, what type of apps, and I'm just talking about phones. I'm not going to other industries. We can spend hours going to other industries. Yeah. And I'll just end this conversation by saying, is there a new device? Maybe. So if you have now this connection that is reliable, and let's assume that the coverage is built, and you can do some of the processing capabilities in the cloud. So now you could actually have something you wear, like eyeglasses. Think about an eyeglass. So I'm talking about the potential of the technology. Sure. Eyeglasses with cameras connected to 5G to the cloud. And then we can have this exact situation we have right now, but maybe using augmented reality and virtual reality. Some of us will be physically here. Some of us will be virtually here, and your eyes won't be able to tell the difference. So we'll transform how we think about social interaction, and you'll be able to do that because you can do very light devices that people can wear because you rely on the computational power of the cloud, and you're connected 100% of the time. So maybe we'll see new devices. Maybe we'll see more than one device that people wear, but We don't know. It's difficult to predict, like it was difficult for anybody that was in the mobile ecosystem to imagine what was the smartphone revolution was, but we have this opportunity for us in 5G.
I think that might have been a hint.
Yeah, well, definitely. Stay tuned.
Yeah. All right, so I know we have to wrap here soon, and as PJ so eloquently put it earlier, every minute that we have you here, we're slowing down 5G. So we've kind of developed the nickname, or it's been developed for you, of Mr. 5G.
I didn't know that.
Which I love. And so I guess kind of bringing it back to, your origin story at the beginning and sort of getting into the tech industry, what do you want your legacy to be?
Look, it's a very profound question and hard to answer in a few seconds, but I'll do my best. It's part of the things that actually attract me about what I do, and I'm working in this great company as Qualcomm with this great people. And I was asked the same question actually in a meeting yesterday, and my first answer is what motivates me to work every day to come to Qualcomm is the great people that we have. But part of that is the ability to work on something that you can point to and see how that changes the society, change people's lives. And, like technology, I believe technology can be a force for good. Like everything, you have pros and cons, but there is a lot to be said and pointed to what Qualcomm, advancements in mobility over multiple decades how has connected the unconnected, how allow people to have access to, to digital, to computing, to the internet, to communicate, how to modernize their business, how to help their economy. And I see that continue as we continue to go to those generations. And I think it's really unique and great and humbling to be working for a company that actually what we do matter and it can transform the society. And I think that's not only my legacy, but for everybody, that here working hard at Qualcomm.
It's nice.
We don't want to take up any more of your time because we want more 5G in the world. So, Cristiano, where can people follow you and find more news about Qualcomm?
Absolutely. You should follow me on @Cristiano Amon at Twitter.
Awesome. All right. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you. My pleasure. Happy
Good
to be here
chatting with
again.
you.
All right. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Qualcomm Podcast. And if you haven't already subscribed to our podcast, you can do so via SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Oh, and by the way, my friends in legal really want you to know that Qualcomm Snapdragon is a product of Qualcomm Technologies Incorporated.